Welcome to Journey Through the Gate, your paranormal portal podcast, as we delve into the many questions and wonders brought on by the supernatural experience. What's on the other side of the gate? Let's find out together. By all means, let's find out together. How's it going? Am I 5'5"? Can you hear me? Test 1 2. Test 1 2. Hello, you wonderful people. Good to see you, gatekeepers. This is some tasty tea. Tell you what, you all missed it, but I just had my headphones all tangled up in my tea bags, and it was a near catastrophe experience. Hello, Caillou. Welcome in. Welcome in. Hey, Scott. Good to see you, Lindsay. It's wonderful to see you, Lulu. Lulu's actually been to Stonehenge, from what I understand. Ted, did you say you had gone? I can't imagine Ted not ever being at Stonehenge. But am I saying that correctly? Hey, Jim. Welcome in. Welcome in. Jim's got a great show on his YouTube channel, and so does Scott. And Ted, did you start your campfire stories, your campfire tales in front of the walled up priest? That's just awful. Is he still there? I mean, I know you said he's gone to dust, but honestly, can we put a rose bush there or something? Oh, so many things happened today doing Stonehenge. Listen, I don't know very much about this, and I love taking a little time, a couple extra weeks. We do shows like we did last night where we're just talking, watch a couple ghost stories. But those give me time to do a little research and a little collection of information. Because again, like I said, if I could do a podcast like AJ and Hecklefish, it would be great. I can imagine having, a black cat sitting here heckling me the whole time. It would be wonderful. But listen, those take a lot of time and a lot of production and a lot of research and a lot of writing and a lot of, everything. And I can do those, but I can do them in between, and then you're working, and then it's crazy, and life and bills and those kind of things. So I love it when I get a subject that I know a little bit about, but I'm really not too I'm not fluent in it. I'm definitely not fluent in Stonehenge. I'm not fluent in Atlantis or Antarctica. Half the time I get Antarctica, like I did last night, mixed up with the South Pole and the North Pole and Santa Claus and all that kind of stuff. So I admit it when I'm learning and when I have to really go and learn about a subject just so I can report on it. I think you should know a little bit about it. You need to dig into the research and what's important and what isn't, and who's lying and who isn't, and where did this information come from? Where did this idea start? Where did this so-called fact come into play? If it's, you're not hearing about this thing till 40 years after the actual crime or the actual incident, why did it take that long for it to come out? Was it a deathbed confession? Was it, somebody died and we found letters or found footage or, any of those things. So it takes time to research, and it's the rabbit hole, and so it was really interesting to dig into this one, and I find it quite amazing. And I thought to myself, if I'm going to do crop circles, there's so much about it, and Scott said it here in the chat. There's so many theories and so many different directions you can go, and how are we going to cover it all in one show? And it's going to be more than one show, and you have to kind of always do that kind of thing. Like Lincoln, I knew there was no way I was going to do everything I wanted to do on Lincoln from, all the way through in one episode. It wound up being 5 or 6, didn't it? And people think I'm crazy for doing that, but nobody sits down and asks me why I did it that way. I had a reason, because I wanted to do it thorough. And then I can go back, and if I hear little things, I can now look back and go, okay, that fits into that timeline with Lincoln. you have my attention. Whose journal? Who was this? Okay, they went in that circle. I remember reading about that circle of people. Let me look into that. You have a little bit, it's a little easier to have a conversation, an in-depth conversation in subjects that mean something to you. Well, I have been reading about crop circles. I'm sure that I first heard of them on, I want to say maybe Fate magazine. Maybe it was John Keel. I'm not really sure when I first heard about them, because when you look into this, it goes back, way back. And I wonder if it goes back further than you guys think. So when I was digging around, I pulled up some research on all of these activities happening very close to Stonehenge. And then I started digging deeper and finding out how many more are showing up around Stonehenge. And it's astronomical, the difference between there and any other place on the globe. Why is that? So I thought we could dig into all that, and that made it extra interesting. Plus, you know, the land is beautiful, the country is beautiful, the people are beautiful. We have people in the chat here very close from there, you know, our brothers and sisters across the pond. And it's so interesting to dig into this. And when I think about it, I think about, of course, things I grew up with, Camelot and Sir Lancelot and Guinevere, and, you know, all of these things, the castles and the ruins and the ghost stories and the ghosts in the wishing well and all that. That's where my mind goes. So to add this in, if you ask me what I think about crop circles, what is my theory now? Has it changed much? I still don't know. But I can tell you, I think, and Mr. Stockton would probably agree with this. That's why I'm trying to get all this out now, because I want to get his opinion. Is I don't know, because I think there's a little of everything going on, but somehow this concentration around Stonehenge kind of changed everything for me and kind of leaned me in a more supernatural, metaphysical, off-world, other dimensional reasoning behind it. There's just no two ways about it. It's like ghost or Bigfoot. There's some I feel that are one way and some that are in another group, you know, and there's probably blurred lines in between those things. And I think Mr. Stockton here is going to agree. But either way, you know, let's hear what he has to say. And when was the first time he ever heard of crop circles? So without further ado, in this wonderful chat, again, welcome in. If you slid in and I didn't see you, welcome. And I hope I'll be able to acknowledge you throughout the show. Mr. Stockton here is a podcaster. He is also a raconteur. He is a wonderful, wonderful storyteller. And he showed me something this week. I don't know if he wants to talk about it, but it's a great a head nod to how he does his podcast and his storytelling and how he keeps the stories alive. And he's so many more things. And tonight, I'll tell you what, he is my friend. And welcome aboard, Mr. Steve Stockton. Get in here, you old rattlesnake.
Hey, everybody. How you doing? Wow, what an introduction there. I wish
and soon to be a daddy.
Folks. Yeah.
Again.
13 weeks today.
Papa to be. Papa. Gosh, there's so many Papa songs, Steve. So many Papa songs.
Here.
But speaking of Papas, what was the first time you can remember hearing about crop circles, Steve?
I think it was probably in 40 and Times. British,
yeah.
Of course,
was it Keel? Was it? Was he
about him?
I know it was the lights in the U.S.
Wrote about him back in the teens and 20s and 30s.
Okay.
So it's just one of those things that just kind of was.
Yeah. And it seems like they go back. It almost seems like they were always there, but were they? You know what I'm saying? Do you know where I'm going with that?
Yeah.
If you look back, it seems like it was always present.
Stuff, the
like Christmas cards
and things like that. The Cardiff Giant. It's been there a long time anyway.
Yeah. And, and you think back and you go, no, I've never really thought about when it must have been on one of the shows on like Chariots of the Gods around that time,
Yeah.
whatever show was on at that time,
It was
In Search
probably
of, or
around 73 was when I really became
yeah,
hyper aware of it. There was a big UFO flap that year and all kinds of
yeah,
UFO magazines on the
so many.
newsstands and stuff, and they started talking about crop circles and stuff. So
Right.
it had already been around for a while then.
Now, had you been on that little video that I did for you coming in here in the intro to get the flavor going, to get the the spices rattling around, to get you used to where we're going to talk tonight, did you notice that since they've been counting and when they started, I cannot tell you. I've tried to find, it's so hard to find details on this, because either you pull up these sites like these Zachariah Cushion or somebody else, and just like, I can't, I don't have time to read the entire Encyclopedia Britannica. I just need, give me the dates. When's the first, recorded sighting? Let's put it that way, and go from there. And where was that? And who has the most? And where are they seen the most? And why do they think that they're seen there the most? And, is it a ley line thing? Is it something else? Is it? And I'm digging, Steve, and I find out 380 since they've been counting or noticing crop circles just in the fields around Stonehenge.
Yeah,
so
just in that immediate area. And,
right.
Tens of thousands of them, I think, throughout the UK and
Let me pull
that area.
Yeah. And then it
and I
said,
even heard some stuff one time that they had found them under the, like, I think it's in Japan where the subway trains run, in the dust and dirt under between the rails. They were down there and they found crop circles underneath.
It started spreading.
So it's like, is it the trains doing it, just that motion, or is whatever it is able to do it just anywhere there's a little bit of dirt or dust or crops?
See if I can pull this picture up. I didn't get a chance, guys. I've got a video for you. I got plenty. Listen, I just grabbed a bunch of experts, an unsolicited, unprovoked ad for, was that Dunkin' Donuts that I recognize the hot pink sliding by there?
I've got both.
Is it iced coffee? Oh, goodness.
But I do the hot from Starbucks and the iced from Dunks. So.
It's just apparent. I just had this picture. I've got such an imagination. I just saw, like Lady Justice with the blindfold and the scales. It's like I saw a ghost with the blindfold with these scales, but never mind. It's scary.
One in one hand and one in the other.
It's scary in here.
And it's all good. It's coffee.
I had this whole coffee thing going on. But anyway, I'll stick to my tea. I am doing the rose mint, not de-stressor tea from Bigelow. All right. So I got the picture. Here it is. So there it is right there. You can see where Stonehenge is. And I don't know if this picture was spliced, because I've seen a couple where they were different angles. And I believe this is the last big one. It's a Fibonacci. What is that called, Steve?
The Fibonacci sequence. Yeah.
Yes. And it's
the numbers. It's all throughout.
Yeah.
Everything in nature. God is in the numbers.
But here's Stonehenge, and this is just in a field not very far from it. You could stand, on top of one of these stones and see it. But I think it was more kitty corner. But if you could see where Stonehenge is from an aerial view, and I should have another picture here somewhere. They'll definitely be in the videos thoroughly, I promise you. But when you look down, the whole area seems to be very much farmland, very rural. And, of course, it's got a highway running through the center of it, which just makes it mind-blowing to me, because you're looking at this ancient. It's kind of like looking at the pyramids and then seeing people and cars going by, with headlights and stuff.
And
it's just
follow
weird.
The ley lines, there's other standing stone sites and all kinds.
Here we go.
Of stuff over there. So
here's the Fibonacci right here. Thanks, Jack. Yeah.
Each number adds the previous number to it. And it goes on
and it's in all in nature. It's in the petals in a flower. It's in, it's in the shell of a nautilus
shell. It's in
all of those things.
Sunflowers. It's all divine. Put it that way.
Right. Absolutely. I totally believe that as well.
Intelligent.
So the whole thing about it is, though, if you get this aerial view, this drone footage, and again, you'll see it coming up in the videos. all around Stonehenge is all of these different fields. Now I'm looking at it from the point of view of like from today. Here's my conscious level and my vantage point. I'm looking at all these poor farmers and I'm thinking, what a pain in the butt this must be for them. Because if they're having a year like they are now and a great big crop circle in the
And
middle of your
something's out there
grain,
drawing
right?
circles in it and
Yeah. And they're
geometric
losing enough
patterns
money.
and
Poor guys.
binary things and stuff that looks like barcodes and stuff out there, QR codes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And
It's
and
immensely
their
strange.
harvest, their whole thing. Hey Lee, how you doing, honey? Welcome in. So it's so many levels. It depends again. I guess I'm saying all this just to say vantage point. My vantage point going in, not knowing much about it, then, getting in there and getting interested. Okay, Stonehenge has got something to do with it. Oh, wow, look at the fields around Stonehenge. And oh my gosh, 380 since they've been counting. And I think that's early 70s. I don't know how far back that goes.
Yeah.
Was trying to find those facts. And if they say it
And
tonight in the video, we'll point it out. But
G, who's in the audience
that's
here,
a
we have
lot.
a channel called From Beyond where we do UFO and related phenomena. We watched a documentary on crop circles a couple of
So
weeks
where are
ago.
you sitting with them? What do you think so far?
I
I mean, where you are tonight, what do you? It's like everything, isn't it? There's so many
yeah,
angles.
there's some that are obvious fakery and stuff, but some of those
Yep.
are so precise mathematically. Unless you had somebody up in the air telling you how to, move 6 inches this way, move that way, do this, do that. There's no
Mm-hmm.
way
Mm-hmm.
that they're all fake.
Right. Absolutely. Oh, so true. Now listen, this in the videos here. Now, what I've done is I've chopped up a couple. We've got, since we're staying in our 90s theme, we're still in the 90s, folks. We haven't left. We've been in there for a couple weeks now. You time travelers, you. So we're going back, and I think it was sightings started around 94. I think they had a crop circle. I got like special, a big chunk anyway, and I've got that, and then I've got another one that's an older documentary, and then I tried to pick out a few where I wanted to get everything in there because there's so many different theories. You've got the two guys that came out and kind of put the kibosh on everything and said, well, we're responsible for the one that was done in 78. Well, okay, how about the other 379? You see what I mean? It's like that thing. It was like Oswald did it. We caught the rifle, the man liquor car cannon. Okay, but that doesn't explain everything else. And just because somebody comes out and says that, don't lose focus on the big picture. Back up, look at the big picture and what's going on over here, because there's no way some of these could have been done. It's like the little quote I put in that video, where the lady, that one of the heads of one of these groups that really spent a lot of time on crop circles, basically said, well, there's some of them, like Steve just said, that are obvious human made and hoaxes or whatever. But then there's the ones that come up in seconds or, instantly or overnight, that are so intricate and so unbelievable. Plus there's also, and you'll see in the video as well, a different way that the wheat, and it's usually cereal grains, right? Hey, RP, how you doing, sweetie? And the way they're bent, they're not just bent. There is a singeing, almost. You explained it good the last time we talked about it, Steve, where it's almost like a stretch and then a searing. I think you
Yeah.
said almost like a
Mhm.
like a Carter, almost like cauterized
Yeah.
in a way.
In a way. And then
Yeah,
also they tested those some of the bigger formations, and there's a high degree of radiation in there, more than
exactly.
natural and background radiation. There's something else at play there.
There's so much. So there's so many different levels going off on this. And like I said, it's fun to think back at when you imagine it all started. But for me, it's kind of looking back and saying, when did you see your first Christmas card? It's kind of hard to
Yeah.
time
It just
stamp it.
kind of one of those things that, yeah, okay, but I couldn't pinpoint the
Right.
very first time I saw one. But I do remember being enthused about it. Hey, what's this?
Yeah,
What
yeah,
can
yeah.
you do
And I
there?
think one of the things that got me too, I can remember being at least a teenager and hearing about it and thinking about it and hearing some scientist or whoever, one of these people talking about how if they're trying to say something why don't they just come out and say it? Why are they going through pictures? Why are they doing, I think they referred to also the, is it the NASDA lines, Steve, where they draw the,
Nazca
is
lines
NASDA,
in
NASCA,
Peru.
NASCA?
Yeah.
So,
And
kind of like
they
that, you
don't
can't
make any
see it unless
sense
you're up.
on the ground, but if you're up 10,000
Right,
feet or so, then it's a figure of an animal or whatever.
right. But what if, then you start thinking, what if, and again, this is my simple minds we're trying to wrap around this, because again, I dove into this a couple weeks ago, just trying to sort it enough to where we could do a show about it, right? So I start thinking about, well, if it's like the lines and you have to be above to see the picture, right? Wouldn't they also know that if again, intelligent life is trying to leave us some type of message? Okay. What if it doesn't have to do with being able to read a message, but it has something more to do with energy and vibration? Because now I'm thinking, again, it's a scary place in here sometimes. I'm thinking of, have you seen these tattoos, Steve, where you can do actual audio waves,
Hmm.
or, and you put something on your phone or something else over it, and you can actually hear a song being played or a
Yeah.
voice of the person,
Amazing.
a recording on a tattoo. So what if it has to do with something along those lines, where we're dropping the ball on our side and we're just not getting the message? Very much like ghost message. We
Yeah.
always say, why don't ghosts just come out and say
Well, I
whatever it
think
is?
they found that some of them are coded in binary. And
Okay.
like I said, probably QR codes or something. If I'd like to scan some of those pictures with a
It's
QR
like
code
we're
reader. And
missing it,
see.
instead of just dismissing it and saying,
Yeah.
well, why wouldn't they just come out and say, if they're so intelligent, that's why we know it's a hoax, and they just blow it all off, like they blow off Bigfoot and blow off Dogman and ghosts and you name it, alien abduction and UFOs. They still point at people. Would you get probed? Oh yeah, man, I can imagine. Look at what poor Travis Walton went through.
Yeah.
Gone 5 days. Every single person in that truck was up for no body, no murder, just assuming, and put them through hell and polygraph tests and probably ruined their lives. It's a good thing they were loggers and they worked for themselves, because they probably lost their jobs too. Because nowadays they don't think anything of doing something like that to somebody,
Yeah.
but it's a big deal. So anyway, I thought about that, and I thought about the tattoos and the sounds and things like that. So I'm thinking there's more to it than we're giving it credit for. Also, the big thing, and then we'll play the video, is people always say, why don't they catch something doing it? Why don't they just put up cameras like, what do you call those things you stick in the woods? Trail cams.
Trail cams. Yeah.
Right. Well, they have caught it. They do have it on video. And it's not big, triangular black vehicle, whatever you'd call it, unidentified. What do they call them now? Yap, flaps,
UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena. Yeah.
freaking flying thing, right?
Yeah.
That nobody knows what it is, right? It's balls of light. And you saw it there in the little video I did. That was one from National Geographic. Okay. And of course, then everybody tears it up and, says it's a hoax and everything else. So I've got something else to say about that too. That one that you saw and probably see again tonight, at least twice, was done in 1996. So it goes right in with our 90s. And the documentaries were also, except for the one at the very end, I think was done in the early 2000s. But either way, I tried to get a little bit of everything in. So, Steve, you ready to roll? Did you have anything you want to say up to this point, or you want to just get started?
No, it's one of those things that
It's
I
something.
think we don't know yet. And like Lee says there, what do you say? It may be a conversation that we just don't get. It's maybe it'll take time and actual study to unravel it. If anybody's there's I think it's a magazine or a zine, a small publication called Cereologist, CERE, because like you said, it's usual cereal grains that this happens to.
Yeah.
There are people studying it, but it's people's on the fringe. I don't know that may exist, but I don't know of any actual scientific or university style studies into it. They just kind of like,
Oh yeah. I agree 100%. But here's the thing. Luckily enough, we can reach back in time and we can go back to shows like sightings. That's the whole reason for doing this. And, in search ofs and things like that.
Yeah.
We've said it 1,000 times. We're reaching back there and seeing what they had then.
Yeah.
And then seeing the struggle now. Well, we're kind of almost doing the same things, might more tech or more this or more that. But
I don't know what the correlation is, but I think it's something like those statues on Easter Island, those giant heads, where those they're all sitting there looking
all
up.
Of it. The
Are
pyramids,
they looking
everything.
for something to come back? Or are they there to scare things away? Like, oh, we don't want to go to that island. It's full of giants. But then they've dug down and found that those aren't just the heads. It's like the upper torso.
Right.
So they put a lot of work into quarrying that stone, bringing it there, carving those giant heads, and then setting them in the ground. Look to the skies. I think that's where the answer is going to come from eventually, when we're smart enough to understand it.
And it's the ancient stuff just gets me too, whether it's pyramids, whether it's hieroglyphics, whether it's, cave paintings or whatever it might be.
All that is mathematically precise and in theory and in whatever.
There's so many wonderful
been done with the tools and the knowledge that people had at that time.
Hey, sweetie. Welcome in. You're just in time. We're about to watch video. Hope you got your popcorn. Does everybody got their popcorn? Everybody got their bacon? Here's some bacon.
My coffee.
Dixon's throwing bacon for everybody. We got your coffee.
All right. Wipes. Did you see the picture I put there in the? You can share that.
Oh yeah, I sure will. The Easter Island stones are called. That's all you, Steve. Moai.
I'm not sure if you're pronouncing it correct. There you go. That's what's going on here at Stockton. I've got 210 diapers and 896 wipes.
Yep, I was going to say you're going to have a stack equally in wipes as well.
I can do 4.26 wipes per diaper and not run out of either. But that's just the start. We're gonna 13
anything
weeks.
Like me, the first
13
one.
Weeks from today.
There's a picture every time you change them. There's a picture every time they do something. There's 1,000 pictures. By the time I got to the second one, it was like, But I mean, I went through diapers. My kids were never cold. They were never dirty. They were never hungry. I mean, that's an accomplishment to say, as times were hard, but they never went to bed hungry. They never went to bed dirty. They had clean clothes. They might have been old clothes sometimes, but to be able to say that, remember how the old folks used to say that? You might be poor, but ain't no excuse to be dirty. Stuff like that.
I've heard that.
So many times, but, all right, so here we go, and we'll stop it along the way, and I forget what order it's in, but it's quite a bit of knowledge. It's a little scoop. It's like a Baskin Robbins, 31 flavors of Stonehenge and crop circles here. So I think I pretty much got it all, Steve.
Yep.
Here we go. When I think of this, I always think of that movie. Was it Still Crazy? I don't know if you ever saw it, but it's a funny movie about old rock and rollers trying to go back in time,
It's like a celestial clock. Equinox or whatever, the sun comes up between different places.
Yeah.
Now, what I've always wondered, when the time changes, do they have to get out there and move the rocks around?
I think they do. They have a crew that does it, Steve. Here now.
The National Trust has to take pictures.
There you go. It was the last time you droned over a crop circle.
It reminds me.
Look at the way it's wheat. It's like
have you seen those grain tests, like where you see a bunch of things? Well, what's the next?
It's like a basket weave design. Yeah, you got. Here it is. Here, look at them go. Look at how fast. Just balls of light. You see it? You'll see it again. That looks so weird, doesn't it? Having a highway right there in the middle. But you see how all the fields are all around Stonehenge? And you never know which one it's going to be in. That's intricate.
And Lee says that's 20 minutes from his house.
20 minutes from?
Countryside. Rational explanations aren't quite so easy to come by.
I want carrot cake.
Oliver's Castle, Wiltshire,
Me too.
1989.
There's a couple of lights down there somewhere.
This controversial film appears to show strange objects hovering above a cornfield. Below, complex circle formations.
There you go.
Here.
1996. The guy showed it in the bar right after he took it.
Retired electrical engineer Colin Andrews.
They didn't have that kind of CGI back then, folks. It would have taken weeks and weeks to come up with doing something like that. That guy was showing that immediately afterwards at the bar,
limited to
at the
the
pub.
realm of fairy tales and nightmares, but took a dramatic turn in the 1700s. The safe realm of myth disappeared when crop circles appeared for the first time.
The first crop circle documented, as far as we know, comes from English folklore. It's known as the Hertfordshire Mowing Devil, 1678. And this shows a circle spiraled around in oats. And this is
there you
cut
go,
into a wood
Steve.
carving.
1678.
There is a script that goes with this, which refers
Devil
to
did it.
the devil arriving as a red light from the sky and cutting a circle into the field of oats.
Crop circles were reported sporadically throughout the 19th and 20th centuries, with a curious build-up in crop circle activity and pattern complexity beginning in the last 25 years.
Farmers began to report in the late 70s, 1978, a set forming an overall geometry. 5 circles suddenly clustered, forming an overall geometry of a Celtic cross. It was 1978, and then continuously since then, circle with a ring around it, 2 rings around it. And then in 1990, for the very first time, we had 2 circles connected by a straight line. The phenomenon itself has not looked back as far as its complexity is concerned since that day.
By the late 1980s, hundreds of crop circles had been documented and researched, and each year they multiplied and developed in structure. It's almost as if an intensification of communication or language was becoming more complex as the years progressed. England became enchanted with the beauty and mystery of these circles. Journalists, scientists, and the curious flocked to Wiltshire to investigate the phenomenon. The Queen reportedly had the book Circular Evidence included on her recommended reading list. Then in the summer of 1991, the Today newspaper made an astonishing report.
Everybody was told by the newspaper that these 2 men claimed they had been the source. They had made
of all of them.
Circles.
Of all of them. And they're like 78 when they're doing it.
Yeah, I don't buy it.
These
They may have
men
done
claim to
a
have made
couple
all
of
the
them, but
crop
there's no way
circles
they
in
did all
England
that
for the
stuff.
previous 15 years, using only a plank of wood and a rope.
Yeah, no.
With unsuspecting families and under the cover of darkness, Doug and Dave would sneak out and make each of these circles in under 4 hours.
I suspect they indeed did make some simple circles.
Doesn't look the same.
I greatly suspect that the entire story has been somewhat fabricated.
For many, Doug and Dave solved the mystery. But for others, Doug and Dave's story not only failed to explain everything, but also preempted an onslaught of copycat hoaxes.
This was the biggest setback in the serious study of the phenomena.
Apart from small, die-hard groups of scientists and worshippers who took the discipline seriously, the subject was beyond the glare of the public. Until, inexplicably, a sudden blitz of media attention about crop circles, heralded by the release of a Mel Gibson blockbuster, Signs, and no fewer than 2 other feature films and 10 documentaries, began to titillate audiences. What changed about crop circles that warranted all this attention? What, if anything, has been learned about crop circles? We know that the crop circle shape can be hoaxed. But what about the anomalous data that scientists are compiling during their surveys? Can this data be duplicated by science? We went to the campus of the prestigious Massachusetts Institute of Technology in Cambridge, USA, where we asked 3 students to look over the crop circle research and design an experiment to reproduce the results in the real world. Dom and Lisa, as well as their classmate Dev, are all members of the MIT Aerospace Engineering School. The MIT students are joined by Nancy Talbot of the BLT Research Team Incorporated. Hi. BLT is the only peer-reviewed scientific organization currently conducting crop circle research.
That's right.
Nancy has brought field samples with her that clearly point out the anomalies collected at what BLT considers authentic crop circles.
I figured that there are three primary components that you might try to replicate. The first parameter is expulsion cavities.
Okay.
These are holes blown out at the plant stem nodes. See that hole there?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They're much smaller, obviously, in wheat or barley.
That's the expulsion.
Theory suggests that damage to the crops may have been caused by exposure to high levels of microwave radiation.
Now, these particles are pure iron, by and large, and they're magnetic.
Nancy showed them evidence of radiation.
I don't know, Steve. Do you think old Bartles and James did that?
Yeah, I don't.
I don't think so.
Just a bunch of hooey. So, I sent you something in Messenger there. It's a PDF. It's a book.
Okay.
Called A Beginner's Guide to Crop Circles. So we might want
All
to.
right. Crop circles for dummies.
Do a part 2. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good.
Exposure.
MIT students try to figure out how the crop circles are reverse engineer a crop circle. It's fascinating.
And elevated iron magnetite concentrations that are often distributed over the perimeter of crop circles. It wouldn't be impossible for a hoaxer to do this, but it would be very challenging. World's reported crop circles occur
That's
in the
funny,
UK,
Jack. That's
and within a single
freaking
region
brilliant.
of Wiltshire called Milk Hill. Over 390 cases last year alone. How can this be explained? Some researchers attribute
Smarty
this abundance
pants.
of circles
Smarty
to the
pants.
unique soil conditions and the underground water table or aquifer.
The basic theory is that the large volumes of water moving underground in southern England acts as a dynamo, creating an electrostatic field which causes the plants to collapse.
Perhaps this ground electrical charge, which is greater than in other areas, could be functioning as an attractor to an atmospheric energy system, rather the way lightning is drawn to Earth because of the negative and positive charges.
The whole process can take as long as 4
Makes sense.
hours, or as little as a few seconds.
That
Human
explains
efforts are more
that.
predictable since the advent of Doug and Dave.
There's another
And these are
well-known
young kids
person
going
there
at it.
that makes them with a garden roller. It's a lightweight plastic garden roller, extremely effective, extremely quick. It's a quicker process than the plank of wood. You're still looking at many hours of work. A 75-foot diameter circle, which is a relatively small one in terms of what we see these days, would take something in the region of 40 minutes.
Colin points out that skilled crop circle makers are fighting a losing battle with the clock in a formation like Milk Hill.
You know, some of these are huge patterns of over 200. The galaxy at Milk Hill now is more than 600 circles. Some of those are 75 feet in diameter alone, all appearing in 4 hours.
Usually the crops are so damaged by the process of being pushed
Where's the
down
common
that
sense?
the patterns will remain until harvest time. In areas of high crop circle concentrations, such as Milk Hill, this means a loss of income for the farmers.
Oh, the Milk Hill formation was absolutely amazing. It took up practically a whole field. I went into it 3 times because it was so enormous and it was so beautiful. It was just totally amazing.
The Milk Hill area has become a hub of crop circle mania. Several pubs are cashing in on the phenomena. Shops sell crop circle memorabilia, and circle fans can even choose among a huge number of private crop circle tours. Denny Clark leads the magical mystery tours every summer.
We stay at bed and breakfast places so that we get to meet the local people. And much of the time we're visiting crop circles. I want to give people the opportunity to experience the magic that pervades the area during the summertime, because it really is special. It's a very special place and a special phenomenon.
She may have gotten a little too close to the radiation there, Steve. I'm not really sure. She looks very happy though.
Yeah,
So-
a little bit. Don't know what kind of crops she was in there.
I'm not sure. She looked really, really happy about it. There's all these extreme angles when it comes to crop circles. Have you noticed that yet? I mean, it's fascinating.
Die-hard crop watchers will go to any length to witness the supernatural formation of a crop
Sure, the
circle.
farmers just love it.
Crop watching is when people go into the countryside at night time and sit on a hill and look at the fields below, hoping to see a formation being made, ideally.
Must be something.
Sometimes the crop watchers are lucky and find themselves close enough to witness the formation of circles.
Now, see, that says it's a hoax, but it has not been proven
Danny
a hoax.
describes a recent event.
It's not.
There were two balls
Depends
of
on
light
who you
that
listen
came
to.
over this one area of the field, and the crop went down in a matter of seconds, just like some energy was pushing it down, and then another couple of balls of light came over and disappeared. It's miraculous. They're like miracles in the fields, and we can be a part of it.
It's undeniable that there is a crop circle phenomenon. People are creating, studying, and believing in crop circles. But what is the hard evidence that has been collected, and what does it mean? There are anecdotal claims of miraculous healing qualities.
I've heard of a couple of instances of people that have had cancer that have gone into crop circles and then had the cancer go into remission. But I think they're very healing on a more mental level too, because they give us that peace. We can experience that peace, and we can take that home with us.
What does hard science tell us? So far, the only peer-reviewed scientific work has been coordinated by the BLT research team in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
And they have wonderful sandwiches. Peanut butter and jelly researchers. Look at that. I just don't think two old guys in the field could do that overnight.
In the land of Stonehenge, a mystery refuses to die. Long after human hoaxers stepped forward to claim crop circles as their own, the things seem to be reaching superhuman proportions.
Look at that.
And spreading around the world. Are they alien landing sites? Messages from a higher intelligence? Some sort of weird weather pattern? Or history's greatest prank?
Well, the aliens put it there.
Other civilizations evolved on this planet many tens of thousands of years ago, and some of them are returning.
There's nothing, it's just fattened crop, that's all it is. Fattened crop and overactive imaginations.
If you were someone in a UFO and you wanted to leave a message, wouldn't you go to the lawn of the White House and make a crop circle?
Now, see, that's my point. Which one of those you listen to? It's like the JFK assassination here. You know what I mean? It's like you could listen to one for 3 to 5 minutes and then go, okay. And then the next one, and then, okay, just as convincing. And the next one. You have to take all of that and put it in the bag, shake it up and go, what am I comfortable with? And common sense, I mean, Occam's razor, the easiest explanation is some of them could be absolutely fake. And then there's some that just have all of these different aspects and details and time and witnesses. Now, again, I'll state, I've watched, I don't know how many different interviews and read comments and got deep in, because you can really get some information in the comments. Sure, somebody can be making up. Sure, it can be a robot. But if you get so many in different ones that are kind of sort of saying the same thing, you tend to, okay, there might be some information there, you know. So it's about that video. And there was a guy on there who said, you know, he sounded like he was knew what he was talking about. And he was also putting out there that, you know, this was his profession. He stated out how many different movies around that time in 96 had CGI that could basically, you know, reproduce that piece of video, that 1996 piece of video. But here are some facts about that you may not know. It's like the Gimlin-Patterson bit. You're going to hear, you know, or the what is it? Oh gosh, the JFK film, you know, with the left and back into the right, back into the left, back into the left. You know, horrid that we've seen that so many times. You know what I mean when I say that. But anyway, it's like that. It's like you'll hear this bit of information here, and then it sways you into your thinking. Is it a fact? Well, here are some of the facts. 1996, this was taken by a gentleman who then was so amazed at what he got, he went to his local pub and he showed everybody within 10, 11 minutes. Now, I don't know. I'm not there. So those of you who are, is there a pub within 11 minutes of these fields? Okay. He was in the field that was, it was probably not where that last big one was. It was, fields off a little bit. It wasn't the one right next to it. So it was off a little bit. So I don't know how many acres those things are and how much time it takes to get, through that highway into where a public pub might be. But he got there just minutes after it was taken. Everybody saw the time on the phone. It was an old phone or an old camera, whatever. It had the reader, the timer there. And the thing was, no, I think it was a phone, because he said that he was so worried that he had showed it so much at the bar, he was afraid that he was going to degrade the video. That was one of his statements. He didn't want to show it anymore until he could get it someplace where he could be duplicated before he ruined it. So it was around those times. You get in there and you listen to people who know what they're talking about. Because here's the thing. If I see a bridge blow up, I'm going to my EOD people. Explain to me what you say. What do you think? They're the experts. So the people that looked at this and said that there was no way that they could CGI that in that amount of time, because by the time that he had gotten that film from the bar to the next phase where they were taking down times and, all this, okay, was it faked? And they're analyzing the film and all this. Couldn't have done it. He said in that time, you might have seen a movie that had that kind of CGI effect, but it took weeks. It took layers. He says he's done the work. He said there's no way that you could have done that in an overnight period or within days. He said it could not have been done with the equipment that was available back then. And I tend to lean on that. Some people, National Geographic and some of these other people, are going to say it's fake. And then you're going to get to other people who are going to say it's absolutely a proven video that's been through a lot of testing. So you're just like in the paranormal, you're going to have those. Okay. I'm going to get some hot water. I'll be right back.
Artists creating their own circle and take a hard look at the evidence. Weird orbs of light that seem to accompany crop circles. Strange changes in the plants themselves. And electrical equipment gone haywire as science and the supernatural collide down on the farm. Wiltshire County in England's West Country, a land of lush, rolling hills, vast farms, and mysteries ancient and modern. This is Druid country, home of white horses carved into the hills, and prehistoric monuments. For thousands of years, Britons have felt that this place was sacred. They responded with ritual and reverence. They built massive, enigmatic circles, such as Stonehenge. And today, circles are again cropping up in these fields, creating the mystery of epic proportions. In the shadow of an ancient monument called Silbury Hill, farmer David Hughes tends his crops at Galty Moor Farm. And Hughes is not a happy camper.
It's nonsense. It really is big nonsense. I just can't tell you enough how stupid these people are. I really can't.
At eye level, there's little to indicate what might be angering him so much. But take to the air over his farm, and it's more than evident. Someone, or something, has been wreaking havoc with his crops. It's a lovely havoc, to be sure, but for the farmer, it means a lot of unsalvageable wheat.
It's costing us money and we're getting nothing out of it. If it was the other way around, how would they actually like me to come into their garden and trample down their flower bed and say that it came from aliens?
If believers in the paranormal are right, Hughes is being plagued by a phenomenon that's been around for centuries. They point to a 1678 wood carving called the Mowing Devil that seems to depict the creation of a crop circle in England. But it wasn't until the 1970s and 80s that crop circles began hitting the news again. At first, they were simple enough. Small single circles, just 30 to 40 feet in diameter. Then they began to spring up in increasing numbers and complexity each year. And thousands of believers in the paranormal flocked to them. By 1991, a minor craze had seized Wilshire. Then, everything came to a screeching halt.
I'm Dave Chorley, this is Doug Barr, and we are the two people that have created the crop circles in 1978.
Artists.
In 1978.
Nah, don't buy it. Doug,
I don't think they did the one last year. How about you, Steve?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Doug and Dave.
I like what's going on down in the chat, though, about the math and the numbers and the music and the art and all that. It's all true.
That some of those crop circles remind me of. Look at the fractal sets. Some of those, the Mandelbrot and the Julian, some of those. And again, it's a high mathematical formula. But I think that's what's in here too. There's binary in this. There's fractal,
and then you've got the radiation. You've got the
sequence, and
blown
the lady talking
rockets.
about people going in to these crop circles and their cancer going into remission. Well, if you have cancer and you go to a medical facility, what's one of the treatments? Radiation.
What if it might very well be that they're putting them near Stonehenge because the people that are drawn to Stonehenge at least have a draw to that, a draw to history, and a draw to maybe the metaphysical, and at least have that kind of mindset. And maybe they feel if they put it close to that, they'll get them close to some type of an energy that might wake up something that's been dormant for a long time that we're supposed to have on a natural basis, like a stronger intuition or a self-healing, or turn on a lot of the lights and things that have been shut off over the decades and messing with our DNA and the chemtrails and all that other stuff and fluoride. Who knows? It could be just something simple like that. Just like, let's put it here. They'll pay attention if we put it here. Maybe they'll come closer. Maybe some of them it'll help. Like that lady, she's actually had some of her lights turned on lately.
Yeah.
I mean, look at her face.
They were just a plain circle, and then to get people's attention. And then they get a little more complex and a little more complex and a little more complex.
Now it's like they're showing off.
At some point, we'll be able to maybe decode those or get a message. Like Sir Brian's talking about there, we're talking about those binary messages that we sent into outer space. So maybe that's their version that they're sending back.
Did you see the stuff we sent?
A platter like we did. Maybe they're putting it on something else. They're drawing it on.
I was thinking that as well.
Yeah.
And the stuff we sent has got to be just as confusing to them. I mean, gosh, we sent, Old Blues sung by Blind Watermelon Jones, whatever his name was. I really think I didn't mean anything by that. I really think his name had watermelon in there. But I mean, it's just the near. I mean, it's just, that old porch, all this other, just so many different things.
Stuff, yeah.
And then I think they sent some AC/DC and some Who too, and they're probably just up there going, "What in the world?" If they don't know, we're doing the same thing. Going, "What are you trying to say to me?" And they could be doing the same thing. Yet, if they come here and they get in front of us, they just tell us telepathically what they want us to know, and they can tell what we're feeling, and they can tell what we're afraid of and what calms us down, and all this other stuff, and can freeze us and can do all these things. Why aren't they just? There's plenty of billboards on the highway. Write what you want there. We'll get it. Do it all at the same time globally, and we'll get the message.
If it did show up on a billboard, who would believe it? Oh, it's a hoax. Oh, it's fake. It's AI. It's it's Photoshop.
Somebody will clip it, Jack. Yep. Wow. So yeah, like I said, I've got a little bit of everything, and a couple times you'll hear the same information again, but it's from a different person. And they sway it a different way. And I wanted to make sure that you got to see all that, because again, when you're looking at something like this, no matter what it is, whether it's Abraham Lincoln, whether it's Civil War, whether it's the moon, is it hollow? Did it ring? Did it do this? Is it dust? Did somebody move it? Is it a spaceship? Look, it doesn't matter what you're looking at. You've got to take it all. I mean, you imagine being a jury on the trial for crop circles. What would you be doing right now? What would you be doing if you had to pick? At the end, it's a multiple choice and you have to pick one. You can't have them all. There's not all the above, which is what I think it is. Because until you can sort the hoax from the actual, which is what I think some of these people are trying to do.
And even the ones that are hoaxing, what's driving them? Why do they go out? Why do they feel compelled to
there
go out
can't
there
be
and
much to do out here.
circles in the crops? Yeah, I can think they'd have.
I mean, to spend all night with flashlights and nobody sees 10 people out there with boards and rope and flashlights out there trying to follow these little diagrams on these, extremely intense and intricate designs that they're doing, that they designed on a computer. I don't know.
I don't think you could do that intricate patterns unless you had like transits or theodolites or laser systems to guide you.
Absolutely. Good point.
You're not going to go
transits
out
all over the
Some
place.
have fun toying with people's heads. Some are commercial artists.
I'm not a skeptic and I'm not a believer. I'm an artist, and that's kind of why I make.
He's an artist. He's a circle maker.
Some believe their circular art.
There's one. What do you do for a living? I'm a
Great
circle
universal
maker.
Intelligence is looking down on us tonight. Please give us the
So that says
inspiration.
maybe they'll make them, and then whatever's out there, we'll see it and come back and make theirs.
Yeah, maybe they're cussing at him.
Not man-made.
Maybe it's all
Some try to study the
profanity.
soil and plants scientifically. Some detect strange conscious energies in the circles. And some see the patterns as signs from UFOs.
It's not people.
To many,
that's what I'm saying.
The evidence couldn't be more obvious.
Skeptics, it's
Not
very
saying it's
difficult
aliens,
to know where
but
their
it's
head
aliens.
is actually at. It's trying to ask a cod what it thinks of London. That's a
Like this guy, did you hear what he said? It's like trying to ask a cod what he thinks of London. I love people who speak like this. It's like Professor Leak in the Mothman Prophecies, when what's his face is Richard Gere's character asks him, why don't they just come out and tell us what they want? And he looks at him. He says, "You're more intelligent than a cockroach, don't you think?" He said, "Yeah." He goes, "Did you ever once stop to consider explaining yourself and what you were doing and what you wanted to them?" And he said, his whole face just went blank. He went, "Nope." Well, when you start thinking about whatever's doing these things, whether it's a Mothman, whether it's Indrid Cold or extra dimensionals or ancients or any of this stuff, you got to think in those terms of why would they explain what they're doing to us if they're so intelligent and up there and vibrating up, why? Makes sense.
dead. A lot of them are.
We were so fed up with hearing about the debunking constantly. It's all a hoax, it's all a joke. Well, we'd all seen enough to convince us that wasn't the case.
Look at that mess.
Andy Thomas is a founding member of Southern Circular Research and editor of the website swirlednews.com.
Swirled News, Steve.
He's been researching and writing about crop circles since 1991.
Well, I remember the first crop circle I ever saw was just sort of in the distance. There was something that went dong in there, and I just knew that sort of my destiny was somehow being rewritten. There was just something so mysterious about it that called to me.
Thomas has observed and
maybe it's
measured
just for
hundreds
certain
of crop
people,
circles
Steve.
over the years, and he's also been involved in experiments trying to influence their creation. These have convinced him something's out there, and it's eavesdropping on us.
One experiment I was involved in back in 1995, we sat up on a hillside. We had a certain shape that we hoped might arrive as a result of this experiment.
This is interesting.
We meditated, we focused our minds on this shape, imagining it appearing as a crop circle. We then found out that night, exactly that shape that we had drawn appeared as a crop circle in our local area where we'd done the experiment. Now, nobody knew what we were doing. It was carried out in secrecy. We didn't make it. How did it get there? What were the odds? What was the coincidence?
What are the odds?
There's a lot of evidence that this is an interactive phenomenon.
Are we
Almost
manifesting
as if something's
them,
listening in on
Steve?
your shoulder, or we are throwing something out there which is then manifesting in the fields for real.
A crop circle
Whatever is
tulpa,
manifesting
as
in the
it
fields
were.
seems to be generating strange energies. First-hand accounts tell of fresh batteries going dead, cameras malfunctioning, and compasses acting strangely. Paul Vigay says he's witnessed this firsthand. A computer programmer, he's dedicated much of his free time to the circles. Paul was in a circle near David Hughes' farm one day when he couldn't get his mobile phone to work.
I thought, well, that was odd because it was working just now. I went to the edge of the crop circle, literally held the phone at arm's length over the crop, and the meter on the phone went up to full signal strength. Brought it back in the circle and there was no signal. And you almost got tingles down your back thinking, yeah, there's something strange here.
What is that strange thing? Paul Viguet will only allude to some sort of energy that science has yet to discover. Andy Thomas feels the presence of some sort of intelligence, though what form it might take, he doesn't specify.
You've said this, Steve.
But it could be people in our future that have learned how to time travel, and maybe this is a critical period in our evolution when they're coming back to find out what they can do to just tilt it a bit or put it right or something like that. You don't know.
But here's the rub. Why don't crop circles form in front of witnesses? One of the most compelling arguments that crop circles are man-made is the shyness factor. They appear when no one's around.
And here we go again.
Statistician Ted Clay has never visited a crop circle. Instead, he's a cyber detective, analyzing crop circles via the web. Even from thousands of miles away, he sees human fingerprints all over the formations.
There's one really big reason to say you should be suspicious of crop circles is that they occur at night. If the purpose was to get our attention and to send us a message, wouldn't it be more effective to get our attention by doing it right smack in front of us in broad daylight? Why is it always seeming to be created out of view, out of sight?
Reg Presley has his own explanation for the shyness factor, a perhaps understandable reluctance on the part of superior beings to rub shoulders with violent primitives.
I love gorillas, but I wouldn't get in a cage with one. I don't think they're going to get in a cage with us because we've had people shooting at them, farmers shooting with shotguns.
Good point.
I know.
Especially in America, where they're allowed to have guns, you know. No, I don't think we're a happy bunch for them to even mix with.
So, UFOs,
also another good point.
People from the future, an amorphous intelligence, an unknown form of energy, or just some common human mischief run amok in the fields.
They're getting more and more complicated. Now, are the people in the UFOs getting smarter? Are they getting more artistic? Is their message getting more complicated? And really, if you were someone in a UFO and you wanted to leave a message, wouldn't you go to the lawn of the White House and make a crop circle?
It's time to take a hard look at the evidence.
It's amazing.
Later, we'll investigate one of the most sensational pieces of evidence in which balls of light seem to create a crop circle in broad daylight. We'll also examine the findings of a research center that claims to have documented strange damage to the flattened crops.
Yep.
But before that, we'll be exploring some creepy encounters of the crop circle.
Do they still harvest what they can? Are people unknowingly eating that stuff?
There's no denying.
This is a great question, Steve, because here's the thing. Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. And I don't know how they split that up. That's a great question, because I don't know if somebody comes by and says, okay, the ones that have the radiation in it, those are condemned, because there's been a couple of these clips, and I don't know if I have one or not. It may be in here where you're getting it from the farmer's point of view. He goes, they're a crazy bunch. They come in here and they transfer. He says, you don't understand how hard it is to keep people out of my field. I'm trying to feed a family and pay my bills. And these people are transferring through my field and yada, yada. And you know, what the cost is to them and from their perspective.
There's $1 million idea. Harvest that and market
Sell
it
the
separately. Crop circulos, you know, you could eat and charge $50 a box, and everybody would want a box of them.
You heard it here, folks.
Maybe
Crop circulos. This is brilliant. And Jack, you and Brian and Vixen, whoever was in there with the numbers and the Fibonacci and all that, you come up with the codes and the cover to the box. But I'm telling you right now, that is $1 million seller. Now all we got to do is get a hold of some of that grain.
Yeah.
Crop circulos. And why somebody's not doing that? They probably are.
Let's do a Kickstarter and see how much money we can.
And some say even to heal.
Here we go. Children of the Corn crop circles. Here we go.
This world or another is what's at stake.
I mean,
Paul
who's to
Begay
say?
may be
Maybe
the
once you
only
get there,
person in
it
the
takes
world
you.
His idea of fun is to
Possible.
take electromagnetic readings from vegetables, flowers, and grain. It's a hobby that touched off his 12-year dedication to crop circles.
What's your hobby?
Well, when I started out, I was fairly sceptical about the whole subject, but my mother had always been sort of had a interest in the paranormal, I suppose you'd call it. I went to visit one day with this little electronic measuring meter I'd made, and for a bit of a gimmick, I was touching it on some corn stalks she'd got hanging up. I was quite surprised to find I'd got different readings on different stalks, and she was quite amazed by this and got me to go in the other room while she muddled them up again. I came back in, sort of same type of readings on different stalks, and she got even more amazed. And eventually I said, well, come on, let me in on the secret. And she said that all the ones that there'd been no reading whatsoever on had come from a crop circle that she had visited, and all the others were from just ordinary crop.
This inspired Paul to dig deeper. After years of compiling strange readings, he's sure he's found a pattern. Flattened crops possess weak electrical charges, while upright crops are more energized. Paul sees the paranormal in these measurements, but Ted Clay sees the perfectly normal.
It comes as no surprise to me that you would pick up electrical differences between outside and inside a crop circle. I mean, standing wheat is kind of like a little lightning rod, and electrical charges tend to focus on the top.
Something to consider, but I don't think they would start radiating.
Of wheat that's laying flat, but it doesn't tell you anything about how the crop circle was made. These are just characteristics of flattened wheat, flattened anything.
But not all observations of crop circles are so easily dismissed. Some crop circle enthusiasts say that no human could create some of the massive formations in a short English summer night. Now, they point to anecdotes about formations occurring in broad daylight in a matter of minutes.
There was a famous formation in 1996 opposite Stonehenge. It appeared within a period of 45 minutes in broad daylight.
45 minutes.
Flight over Wiltshire. On the first leg,
yeah, I think that's the one Lee was talking about.
Over Stonehenge.
Could be.
They saw nothing unusual in the fields around it.
Look at those fields.
The pilot landed at a local airstrip, refueled, and 25 minutes later was in the air again. This time, he spotted an enormous formation. It contained 151 circles.
Look at that.
And was one of the largest and most complex formations to date.
That wasn't Bartles and James.
Believers insist that there was no way the pilot and passenger could have missed such a large formation. Skeptics think differently.
Well, what I've heard of the story of the Stonehenge flyover is that they circled around Stonehenge. If you're circling around Stonehenge, what do you suppose you're looking at? You're looking at Stonehenge. Now, if there was a crop formation right here, it'd be pretty hard to be looking at Stonehenge and not also see the crop circle right here. But if it's way down here, it's a lot more difficult to be looking at both at the same time.
Here's another kind of evidence.
I think I would have seen it.
Counter the argument that
you're not just looking at Stonehenge, you'd be scanning the horizon, looking around, seeing what's out there.
For those
yeah, you'd see it.
Balls of light may sound enchanting, but many say they're not.
I myself saw the so-called balls of light, and they were, well, literally these glowing spheres of light sort of sailing above the fields. Later on that same week, we experienced these strange black flickering shapes, and they were utterly bizarre. They were like these sort of black strobing effects that you could see them going, and they were absolutely terrifying, I have to say.
Balls of light have not only been witnessed, they've been caught on tape above and around the fields that play host to crop circles. In July of 1990, photographer Steve Alexander decided to investigate crop circles for himself. He took his video camera and began to tape. Suddenly, a floating light caught his attention. This is what he videotaped. It's possible to explain it away as an optical illusion, a video malfunction, or even a white bird over the field. But there was an independent witness. A farmhand was driving his tractor that day when he saw what he described as a shiny, bright object that flew over him.
Now, see, you usually don't get to hear that. But there's two or three at the same time.
To this day.
I don't know. What do you think?
The piece of evidence, the one that comes closest to hard proof for some believers, appeared in 1996. It seemed to confirm the link between balls of light and crop circles.
Here it is again.
There's a couple of lights down there somewhere.
On this video, balls of light moved over a field below an Iron Age fort known as Oliver's Castle. As if directed by an intelligence, they apparently triggered the creation of a snowflake pattern in the field. It was every believer's dream come true. The Oliver's Castle videos seemed to be a slam dunk, the definitive piece of evidence. But within days, doubts began to grow, and the debate over its authenticity continues to this day. Later, we'll get the behind-the-scenes look at this famous video, and we'll be creating our own balls of light for the camera.
Well, there you go, folks. There's a little bit of everything in that one.
Yep.
And I think this is okay. That's where that one stops. So what do you think so far, Steve? It's a little bit of everything. It's a buffet of information.
Inconclusive, as they say, but I lean toward it's something paranormal, supernatural, otherworldly, something we don't understand or comprehend yet.
Right. And it's the thing is too, it's so good to get a good bunch like that, because that's a little bit of everybody. And even I thought it was frustrating at first when I was getting the same piece of information told by somebody else and leaned this way or leaned that way, but you can really do that with, it's a great, I guess, little test or little trial or little lesson, whatever you want to call it. You can do that with any kind of information when you try to sway it this way or pull it that way, like taffy, you know? So it's good to get everybody's view.
In the news and stuff, what they call spin, putting the spin on it.
Putting that
you
spin
can
on
take
it.
the same thing and spin it one way or the other.
Wall-to-wall style.
You've just changed how they're presented.
Absolutely. And anytime you get into anything like this or anything that can be a cover-up or conspiracy, you start bringing in MIB and Men in Black and the next thing you know, it's like Bigfoot sightings at Stonehenge or whatever. And look, things start getting crazy. There's all of the craziest stuff is probably true. The fact that there's some that these people go out and make. These two guys, I forget their names, Dave and Jim, whatever.
Sam and Dave.
Bartles and James.
Yeah.
In 1978, and they keep showing that we're responsible for the one in 1978. Okay, so they got out and they did one. Well, there's been 380 at Stonehenge alone, and you heard the guy. It goes back. I don't
think Sam and Dave are around anymore.
1700s or and then they've got that one in earlier than that where it's the devil hacking the circle in the crop. That was crazy in the book way back then. So how interesting.
Dave Buster.
Dave and Buster. Exactly, Dave and Buster.
They have good ice cream and video games, but
I have another small I have two small little surprises here for you. But it ain't over yet, folks. So before I show the other little piece, I've got another one from Sightings, which comes a little bit later, and there's a couple of new things in there and a couple of the same again. Because what are you going to do? It's a crop circle. I think that the ones that have the basket weave kind of look to it, I mean, that's just showing off at this point. If you look at how they started off very simplistic and then grew, what if it's growing with our consciousness and our ability to understand? And like Jack and some other people in here said in the chat, we might not be ready as a species to understand what they're trying to tell us. And it might just be a distraction, or maybe for them, and we don't have anything to do with it. The energy, whatever it is that people are getting all happy and dancing around in them. Look, anything like they do that at Stonehenge all by itself when there isn't anything special going on, or the ocean when people get there, or the mountaintop, or people get like that in nature. But there may very well be some kind of extra energy there. Who knows? But as a little test here, I thought it was kind of funny because everybody's getting into AI, and a lot of people, Steve and I have talked about it before, a lot of people have been using it for podcasting, and it's a struggle when you're trying to come up with a picture to go along with a story, and it's a struggle to get non-copyrighted material.
It'll throw something in there. It'll throw extra fingers or the
right.
head will be off back.
It's so funny. It's a struggle.
Progress. It's learning it. They're still training it, but you can
it's
get
a struggle
artwork out of it.
And I'm cheap because I'm Scottish Native American. And I'm telling you what, I'll squeeze a quarter till the eagle screams. So, when you're trying to do things for the podcast, but you don't want it to cost a lot of money, depending on what you're investing, you always try to, if you're making a lot, you want to put it back in so you can get better, Well, a lot of us have to get crafty with it because we're not going to, spend a lot to do. So I thought, okay, well, what could I do with what's just available out there for free without having to use a credit card and sign up for 3 months free because they get you? What could I do with AI that's just available out there, and not using my phone because I have better apps on my phone than I do on my computer. But, and I do them a lot of my layer and my episode arts and stuff like that. So I thought this would be cool if I could come up with something. So in like a half an hour before the show, I'm in here screwing around with it, just having some fun because I wanted a Stonehenge ghost story for tonight. And I thought I'll go look for one. And I'm sure there is a ghost story that has something to do with the grounds or history or whatever. I wouldn't have to dig much. And I thought, wait a minute, let me give this a shot. So I just went into Copilot, and there's a couple of things that they can do. It even helped me make dinner tonight. I know I'm not for AI, but if it's anything that makes things easier on me. So what can I do with a can of red beans to go with pork chops? And it came up with recipes. And then I didn't have something. And I said, what if I don't have this as sort of substitute? And she told me. I'm like, you're kidding. This is great. It's better than Betty Crocker. So anyway, I decided I would like to have a ghost story centered on Stonehenge that has something to do with like a Guinevere type character, because that's what I see when I think of that. Wouldn't you? Going around looking for Sir Lancelot or something. I gave this thing 6 sentences. I was specific about those 6 sentences. And I said, let her rip. And it wrote you guys a 4-minute Stonehenge ghost story. And then I went to the free AI designer, and I got a couple of pictures. Those are the most difficult because what I'm seeing, what I'm describing, and then it changes. And I'm like, no, I wanted to keep that. It's like, it's very frustrating. But I was able to make you a couple that kind of complements it. So as a little surprise, here's my first AI ghost story. This is actually extremely scary, folks, because now if you're getting a book, did somebody really write that? I'm telling you, we're getting into a slippery slope here, but just for fun, it can also be used for good and not evil. So here we are, the Lady of Stonehenge. Enjoy. 6 sentences I gave her. And this is what she wrote. I know, right? Thank you, sweetheart. I didn't write it. Hey, I did.
The Lady of Stonehenge.
Isn't that beautiful? AI.
Nixie had never been scared of the ghosts in her pub. Rather, she considered them somewhat inevitable, living in a very old town just a stone's throw from Stonehenge. The ancient stone circle was already thought to be an otherworldly place with significant paranormal potential. One stormy night, as the wind howled through the ancient stones, Nixie closed up the pub. The last patrons had left, and she was alone. She glanced out the window, catching a glimpse of a shadowy figure near the tallest monolith. The figure was unmistakably a woman, her ethereal form glowing faintly in the moonlight. Nixie stepped outside, her breath visible in the cold air. The woman ghost turned toward her, her eyes filled with sorrow. Her gown was tattered, and her long hair flowed like mist. Nixie could almost see through her, as if she were made of memories and longing. "Who are you?" Nixie asked, her voice trembling. The ghost woman's lips moved, but no sound emerged. Instead, her thoughts echoed directly into Nixie's mind. I am Isolde, she whispered. Once a druid priestess, now bound to these stones. Love brought me here, and love keeps me tethered. Nixie shivered. What happened to you? Isolde's story unfolded a tale of forbidden love during the time of ancient Britain. She had fallen in love with a warrior from a rival tribe.
Of course she
Their
did.
love was passionate, but their union was forbidden. When war erupted, Isolde's lover was slain, and she was blamed for his death. The druids cursed her, binding her spirit to Stonehenge. Love survives, Isolde continued. Even death cannot sever its bonds. I wander these stones, hoping to find my lost love once more. Tell them, Nixie. Tell them that love endures beyond life and
Tell 'em,
death.
Nixie.
Nixie nodded, tears in her eyes. She returned to the pub and wrote down Isolde's message. The townspeople listened, their hearts touched by the ghostly tale. They left offerings at Stonehenge, flowers, poems, and tokens of love for Isolde and her lost warrior. And so, the Lady of Stonehenge wandered on, her spectral form fading with each passing century. But her message remained. Love survives, even in the shadow of ancient stones. The fading rose. Nixie returned to Stonehenge, her heart heavy with Isolde's message. The ghostly woman had touched something deep within her, a longing for love that transcended time. She stepped through the ancient stones, the air thick with ancient magic. And there, nestled among the moss-covered rocks, lay a single rose. Its petals were the softest pink, dew-kissed and vibrant. Nixie gasped. She had never seen such a beautiful flower, especially not here, where the windswept plains held only hardy grasses and ancient stones. Isolde's presence lingered, and Nixie knew this rose was her doing. Perhaps it was a token from her lost warrior, a symbol of their eternal love. She reached out to pluck it, but as her fingers closed around the stem, the world shifted. The rose withered before her eyes. Its petals turned brittle, edges curling like parchment. The vibrant pink faded to a muted grey, as if the years had drained its life force. Nixie stumbled back, dropping the wilted flower. Love endures. Isolde's voice echoed in her mind. Even in decay, it remains. Nixie understood. The rose was a paradox, a fragile memory preserved in time. Isolde's love had kept it fresh, but the moment she touched it, reality asserted itself. The flower aged, mirroring Isolde's own existence. She left the faded rose where it lay, a silent tribute to love's resilience. And as she walked away, she felt Isolde's presence once more, whispering through the stones. Tell them, Nixie, love survives, even when petals crumble and thorns remain. And so, Nixie shared the tale with the townspeople, adding the fading rose to the offerings at Stonehenge. Each year, they left a fresh pink rose alongside the withered one, honoring the Lady of Stonehenge and her timeless love.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, that's quite a little story there for something that's machine written.
6 sentences I gave that AI. And then I went into Copilot and I asked them, hey, are there any free apps where I could get a voiceover that would read this for me? And I went in there and for free, 30 different voices. I went in, found one, a lady I liked, her. I did no adjusting. I didn't go in and you can go in and make spaces, dramatic pauses. You can fix how they mispronounced a word, whatever it was that she said. And it was kind of like a little bit off, but you can adjust it. So if you want to be creative, there you go. I gave it 6 sentences. Of course, I said I want the message to be love endures. I want there to be a pink rose and I want it to fade. I didn't say anything about a paradox. I just said that when the bartender looks at the rose or goes to pick it up, it fades because there's something about when the ghost had it and she touched it, it changed and it turned old like a vampire does in the sun or whatever. That's all I said. And, have her look like a Guinevere, long hair, whatever, and Stonehenge. And the pub was my idea too. Bartender, I wanted to be between a bartender and a ghost. How about that?
That was good.
Now, does that scare you that somebody?
You still wrote it. You wrote the impetus, the idea. Here, take
The idea.
this and expound on it.
Yep.
And because otherwise, it wouldn't. It'd just be doing its own thing. You gave
Yep.
it the guidelines. It filled in between the lines, and there's your story.
Yep, that was
Amazing.
it. And I also told it that if it was going to be a lady from the past, it would have to be historically accurate. So they went all around that. They came up with all the names. They came up with that whole paradox with the rose. I just gave it an idea and they filled it in. I was amazed that it put in about how they were speaking telepathically and how he heard the male's voice, love endures, when when the rose changed. I was like, what? It's like, they did it all on its own. So let me tell you something, the books and everything else, I mean, guys, with a little tweaking, that wouldn't have been so bad. I absolutely love the line where they said, somebody who's written a few things, I absolutely love the line where she was faded like memories and something or other. I can't remember what it was, but it was like, wow, that was a good line. And I'm sitting here listening to this story going, where did they get that? Where did they come up with this? So basically they're pulling, and at the end, it gives you where they pulled the information from. So it really went out and researched and got all this like telepathic and the paradox and all these other. It blows my mind. It scares the living shit out of me.
Yeah.
I got to tell you. But that was free, including those little pictures that you saw. I absolutely love the one where it did with the pink pop of the, it was very, very well done. So there you go. DeviantArt and all this other stuff for you guys looking for creativity. You want to add it to your YouTube channel, or, if it works for you, if you're doing storytelling or book reading, you can at least get a couple little pictures in there of, the elf in front of the fireplace, if you're doing Rumpelstiltskin or something, the wheel, the spinning wheel or whatever, because trying to find those pictures, and it isn't somebody else's work or something like that. And then you have to, of course, give them, all their just dues, your due diligence doing this. It might help you guys out, but we got our Stonehenge ghost story there, Steve.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun. It was amazing. And all of that, I did that in a half hour, 4 minutes. So incredible. I thought it would be really neat to share that with you. Okay. So there you go. How much time do we have? We have plenty of time, I think, for this. A little bit of sightings if you want. Now, this is a couple years later, and they reach back and they give their take on it. So let me share that. And again, I'm still, my legs are dangling on both sides of the fence here. Quite a few of them. I know what I don't think it is. And I think it kind of, I think that's kind of where everybody is. Somebody gets a little deeper in this angle, a little bit deeper on that. I'm not really there like you guys when you're talking about all the, the technical stuff and the math and things like that. I can absolutely think that, I think that's a given, at this point. Because that's how they communicate, it seems. It's that whole boo, 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 that whole thing. It goes right all in with it. So let me get this up. Is it going to work? Is it going to come up? It is. Okay.
Welcome to Sightings. I'm Tim White. Since the early 1980s, over 2,000 crop circle formations have been discovered in 30 countries, and new ones are being reported every month.
It did spread, Steve.
Where they come from range from weather anomalies to extraterrestrials to crazed hedgehogs doing a mating dance. Well, obviously, some theories are more credible than others, but the fact remains
that's it. That's what it is.
In fields around the world that no one can fully explain. The stories of unexplained designs appearing mostly in the farm fields of England hit an all-time high in 1990. News media from around the world were quick to hail these enigmatic circles and lines as the strangest scientific discovery of the 20th century. For a brief period, crop circles became the darling of popular culture. But then, two hoaxers stepped forward to claim that they had created the crop circles. And just as quickly as the phenomenon began, the media dropped the crop circle story. The hoax theory stuck, and soon the only people still interested were hardcore theorists and scientists.
Initially, these were simple single circles, but in 1990, the patterns became much more complex, dramatically so. and blew right out of the water some of the early theories.
The early formations were the size of a domestic room. Now you have formation which are almost the size of Central Park, so that we have enormous growth, both in complexity and in size and in numbers.
It's evolving,
Michael
Steve.
Green is an archaeologist and architecture historian who is also one of the founding members of the Center for Crop Circle Studies.
We're not a religious cult. We're not a strange, wacky branch of the UFO movement. We are trying to use rational means to establish what's going on.
We're serious because we're in bow
the
ties.
first thing we learnt, and this year in particular, is that there are a few hoaxes.
I'm Dave Chorley, this is Doug Barr, and we are the two
Bartles and
people
James
that have created the crop circles in 1978 through to today.
The most impressive thing to me, and the reason why I actually stopped and listened to what they had to say, was not really what they told me, but what they did in the field. Because when they did the demonstration out in Sussex at Chilgrove, the formation itself was quite messy, but it was amazing how quickly it happened. In 45 minutes, this huge formation was laid down. And that's even accounting for the fact that half the world's press were tramping around it as well with them, asking them for interviews at the same time.
But Doug and Dave had only done a few of the hundreds of circles that had been done. And from the evidence, their public demonstrations in broad daylight, they weren't very good at it. But no one really knew what hoaxers could do and what they couldn't do. And so I thought, well, here's an ideal opportunity for a scientific experiment. And the best way to do it is through a competition.
Biologist and author Rupert Sheldrake did organize a competition held earlier this year. The challenge was to see if anyone could create crop circles that could not be identified as hoaxes. The circles were made at night, and the next day, the contest winners demonstrated their techniques.
What we found was that the standard of artificial circle making was much higher than most people had expected. These people could do very well. The standard was very high indeed, and the most surprising thing was that people could do all this in complete darkness with making very little noise.
I flew the site the next day, and the aerial pictures that we took show some of the centers of these formations displaying exactly the characteristics that the genuine circles have displayed, and exactly the characteristics that many of the experts have said couldn't be done by people. Things like making rings without having a hole in the center where somebody stands. Things like producing a radial effect where the crop splays out from a central point. And the team that won and the team that came second and third produced really marvelous formations, which the judges were very impressed by.
So what they show is that many of the features of crop circles could be hoaxes, but they don't show that they are hoaxes. And I mean, the analogy that I find most helpful is the fact you can forge a $20 bill doesn't prove that all $20 bills are forgeries.
The first and primary
I
feature,
love that.
which is evident in the genuine phenomenon and not in the hoaxes, is the spiraling fingerprint.
Colin Andrews heads up the Circles Phenomenon Research Group in Brantford, Connecticut. He has co-authored 2 books on crop circles and is believed to have visited more actual crop circle sites than any other researcher.
That's a
This
book.
particular screen
Cellular
shows
evidence.
clearly
That's the same
difference
book.
between
You just
the
sent the
fingerprint.
PDF,
This is
isn't
the
it?
print
Yeah,
at the top
I
there.
think so. Or no, that's a different one than I sent you, but that's the one they said that Queen
Phenomenon
Elizabeth
Research
recommended.
Group in Brantford, Connecticut. He has co-authored
think
2
that's
books on
doubled
crop
back.
circles and is believed to have visited more actual crop circle sites than any other researcher.
This particular screen shows clearly the difference between the fingerprint, this is the print at the top here, of the genuine phenomenon, the real phenomenon, and all of those hoaxes which we're hearing so much about these days.
Andrews believes that the most important patterns to be studied are those where the flow of the crops changes direction within a single circle.
Oh,
a
wow.
pattern no human has yet been able to duplicate in public.
I think the single most convincing argument for a real phenomenon and against the hoax are the effects that the phenomenon are having upon the plants themselves. Dr. Levengood, a well-known physicist in the United States, has discovered changes in the structure of the plants themselves, and cell structure of the plants, molecular structure of the plants on a number of continents.
When a formation hits, it just knocks the heck out of the embryo. They don't grow. The seeds don't develop.
Dr. Levengood has discovered that the cell structure of the crops within a formation are distinctly different from undisturbed crops nearby, and that this new cell structure seriously alters the crop's growth.
Let me get this straight. A plant that is in a formation undergoes an internal change so that seeds taken from that plant grow a different kind of plant or an altered plant?
Altered in both the growth rate and the germination. In some cases, it increases quite significantly.
Some people maintain that hoaxers created not only some, but all of these formations. You buy that?
Oh, God, no. No, this is utterly ridiculous. No. If they had that kind of energy, they wouldn't be wasting it out in the field making impressions in a crop. It'd be a new kind of energy distribution, let's say, that I have never heard of.
Mathematician Gerald Hawkins is another scientist with an intriguing theory. Professor Hawkins made his mark in the 1950s when he came up with an explanation for Stonehenge, still accepted today. Now, Hawkins has devised a mathematical formula relating the crop circles to the notes of a musical scale.
Help us understand that. You're not suggesting that because there's a relationship between the ratios of the crop circles and the ratios of musical tones that you can somehow play the crop circles.
I'm not saying that the crop circles are musical. I'm saying that they follow the same mathematical law as the major diatonic scale. No natural physical process that we know will generate the diatonic scale, which is, of course, the white notes on the piano. Therefore, the only theory that we can put forward is that it's done by human beings. It's all a hoax. But they're clever hoaxes, and if it's not a hoax, then we have a major scientific problem on our hands.
Professor Hawkins has studied the ratios of the sizes of crop circles and found the same ratios between notes in the diatonic scale.
If the music doesn't seem listenable, then it seems to imply there's something beyond music being communicated here.
Yes, it could be a copyright insignia of the primary hoaxers or the crop circle makers, and perhaps they may use this later for further information transmission. But I'm not going to predict what crop circle makers will do next.
Dr. Hawkins, you're implying that if even one of the crop circles is not the work of the hoaxer, that science will have to rethink everything?
I'm afraid so. You only need one in this case, and you have a mystery.
What, of course, stands out clearly now is that we have the uncomfortable fact that this intelligence is almost certainly not human. And this is where people become extremely nervous. The media becomes very nervous. The press becomes extremely nervous. They don't like mysteries like this. One of the reasons that some thinkers have thought might be behind this is the position of the Earth in terms of the terrible damage that is being done by man. Could we be dealing with something which is trying to warn us?
Either it's very skillful hoaxers with a tremendous sense of humor, or it's some non-human intelligence that's completely off the scale of anything that we've contemplated so far. But if they are communications of Gaia or nature or aliens or whatever, if they're communications of some kind from a non-human source, it's not quite clear what they're saying. Their main message so far seems to be, watch this space.
Are we any closer today to unraveling the mystery of what or who created the crop circles? Joining me now is George Wingfield, Director of Field Research and founding member of the Center for Crop Circle Studies in London, England. George, welcome to Sightings.
Hello, Tim.
The crop circles have changed over the years. The shapes have changed, the number have changed. Have you learned anything from those directions?
There's no doubt at all that these are of some sort of intelligent origin, and this appears to be non-human.
What do the circles seem to be leading toward?
I think they are leading us towards an understanding of some other level of intelligence which is not human.
Do you believe, George, that the crop circles are an ancient phenomenon, that they've always been there, they just haven't been accounted for by modern means?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think the crop circles started appearing in quite recent times, probably less than 30 years ago. There may have been a few before that, but very, very few.
For you, do the crop circles inspire hope or fear or merely curiosity?
Well, they certainly inspire hope. I believe whatever is causing the circles is something which is benign. I don't believe there's anything hostile or evil here, which is what some people would have you to believe.
George Wingfield, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim.
And we'll be back with more sightings in just a moment.
Coming up next, what sinister spell has cursed the royal family for 600 years?
You're muted, Cisco.
I sure am. Muted Cisco. You imagine such a thing. So that what I said there was a little. I'm not sure what kind of curse it is, but they most certainly have one over there at the royal house. I don't know what's going on, but man, it's some woo. You know, we can't talk though because we sure got something going on in ours too. So, that's why I shared that sightings with you. That was a couple of years on. It was one of the, I think, might have been season 5, season 6, somewhere around there, that were really cooking by then. And just like last night when I said sightings really is that pivotal show in the 90s that you could watch grow in how their paranormal investigation, their investigation into UFO sightings and everything else. They were really fair, I think. And to watch them grow, not only in the technology, but how they went about it. You could see in the beginning, I had said last night, Steve, that the pivotal thing to use as a reference on how sightings, paranormal investigation evolved was the Sally House. And you and I had done an episode on it. I mean, there was so much there, but you could see how they were in the beginning. They were like kids in a candy store, these university people and their parapsychologists and, you know, all the different people that they would have come in and like, we'll try them and we'll try her and see how she fits. And, you know, the Peter Jameses, they'd have come back again and again. And eventually they realized, try to stick with the same people and share all your findings, all your data, you know, and then analyze it, send it to your people and see what they think about it. And they really got good at it, you know, sending out, you could almost see it happen when they'd get, a UFO, a picture or something, and they'd send it to the ufologist, you know, and they would analyze the picture, and then the photography department, you know, of course. And then when they got the first ghost picture, when they started reaching out on the internet, because that's just coming to, you know, really, it's, you know, feeling its oats basically at that point in time in the early 90s. And then to see it at the end, and you can see there, just in that clip, the difference between what I showed you in the beginning to what I showed you there. It's not just the quality, be whoever videotaped it, but the way that they're presenting things in their format really sharpened up as well. So I thought that very last part, Steve, pretty much was a nice smattering again of some pretty level-headed people, I think, saying, if you have one mystery, you know, if you have one,
that's what he said. If just one is not a hoax,
you have a mystery.
Then there's something to it.
You have a mystery, and they keep telling you yet again and again and again. You know, they'll tell you an ancient aliens will blow some kind of smoke up your crop circle, and then you know, did I save it in time? So you know, did I? Okay, good. So the thing is. Again, like I said, there's that phenomenon that something that happens to us when we're watching something that's well put together, that's, you know, well spoken, and the people they look good. They got their bow tie or the regular tie or whatever. They look like they're an expert and they know what they're talking about, and they can tell you the same bit of evidence that have somebody else equally, you know, all those things, but a different take, a different vantage point, and they can take that same piece of evidence. And again, if I was sitting in crop circle court right now, I couldn't tell you, and I sure wouldn't want to be the judge at that trial. But I would have to lean on something that several of these people said, you know, that again, if there's one that was not done by humans, you know. And I love that one guy that was sitting at the desk, you know, in his little clinical white coat and his white beard, his white hair and his glasses. He was just perfect, you know, in the whole, you know, proverbial expert scientist guy. And when he asked me, went, oh, no, you know, there's no way. These seeds produce a completely different plant, you know, genetically altered. You know, there's nobody that has this power as a human being that can go out there and do that. And if they did, I don't think they'd be wasting their time in a field of wheat, you know, if they had those kind of energies and that ability. So if take anything else, you know, take with you that we don't completely understand. But I also really liked the that whole reference to, look, we can fake a $20 bill. You know, we can counterfeit a $20 bill. It's been proven over and over and over again. It doesn't mean they're all fake, you know, but it might mean that you want to, you know, you want to check it before you take it. I tell people that all the time. You count your money in the camera at the bank, because there's a, let's just say it's an urban legend out there that that's how they get rid of their counterfeits. Not everything taken out, you know. And my poor boss, it happened not too long ago. She got like 3 counterfeit, you know, hundreds or something. And she swears she got them from the bank. She tried to go back and they're like, we don't want them. That's how it goes, you know. So
and that's generally what people do. They pass them on to somebody else if they can.
Yep. The sad thing is you got, it's terrible. You're eating it. You're eating it. And that's not the way it used to be. Didn't they used to handle things differently back then? It was
I was thinking there was a way that you could turn them in and get it from the treasury, but I don't think so.
You know, take that little black pen to the bank, sit right there at the drive-through and go, hold on, honey, I ain't done yet. And you know, what? Check it. All right, that's a good one. You know, check the next one. That's a good one. You're almost there. Only got 5 more to go. You know, because listen, if you drive off with that, that's your money.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we got a few more minutes here, and as luck would have it, I have a little something here I thought would be nice. A little treat. It's, again, we're still in the 90s. Again, it's sightings, but it's a fun. Well, I like the way they did this one. It's a UFO sighting, but it happened to police, and they're so shy about telling the story. You know how they are, and they, you know, they want to tell the story, but they have that uniform and they have that, they're trying to keep their job, basically, you know, because again, that ridicule, Steve, the same thing that I remember reading in a couple of your books where, you know, it was hard for you to get some of these stories out of the old folk. Even, you know, you had to kind of, well, tell me the story, you know, or they wouldn't want to have their name even, you know, or, you know, but don't say where I live. Don't say where I am, but you can tell the story. You know, still trying to, they want to tell it, but they want to be safe and they don't want anybody to know it was them. Let's just put it that way. You know, even when you were writing your books and stories and stuff, it's, I don't think that'll ever go away, you know, and yet we can understand something as simple as if there's one and you've got multiple different scientists over almost 2 hours, all different little snippets of what everybody thought and their credentials and everything that went with it in their books. And it's still since the 90s. And here we are again. And I can think back over the past 20 years. I don't think I've given a crop circle a single thought. You know, I can remember all the other things coming up. Every once in a while, it'll pop up in this. It'll pop up in the UFOs or something along those lines. But like I said tonight, I had no idea there'd been 380 just by Stonehenge in that small little crop of fields. These poor farmers, you know, I can imagine a couple of good harvests of that mess, you know, really digging into my profits, and they're not making any as it is. I'd sell that thing. That's like having a haunted house, Steve. Nobody wants to buy. Nobody wants to live in. Can't live in it. It's the same type of thing. So it is really more of a paranormal. I wouldn't go as far as to say parasitic, but I guess in a way it is. It needs us to survive if we weren't looking and paying attention. You know, does a tree fall in the forest? Does a crop circle appear in the field if nobody sees it or hears it? You know, one of those things. It needs us. So it is kind of a paranormal parasitic. And I don't know if it's getting off on our energy. If it is, that lady right there is one of their main taps, that one that we saw, dancing around and all sunshiny, we all stay at the bed and breakfast. We go out and we lay down in the circle, and it's great. And we go in with cancer and come out healed. I hope it's true. It's true. There's something to it, Steve. I just don't know what the hell it is.
There you go.
But there it is.
But there it is.
And I don't know anything about this either, but I like this little story, and I thought I'd throw it in here because, again, UFOs and abductions and things isn't really something I know an awful lot about. I mean, I probably know more than I think, but it's not my forte. So a lot of times when I hear these, I don't know that this one matches up with the one at Rendlesham Air Force Base, or I'm aware of those. I'm aware of 51. I'm aware of Area 52. And all those kind of things, but I don't know enough about them and the dates and the times to have them layer in my mind, almost like I do with ghost stories. I can tell you that the Enfield ghost, all of that, all the different factors it has with other ones and things like that. So again, I'm still learning in all this, but I think everything we've said tonight about crop circles, just about, including the whole hoax. Is it a hoax? Is it fake? Is it real? It goes down for UFO sightings as well. Every single kind, from the lights to the balls of light to the abductions to the, the flying saucers, those cheap, almost look like two paper plates put together flying saucers from the 50s, 60s, what I was seeing when I heard UFO, to these TikTok things, to the thing Indrid Cole showed up in was like a hurricane lamp. And then you have the rods, and you have the Bigfoot showing up with UFO sightings, and the different people getting abducted by different species. It seemed like
it's all connected.
It is. And it seemed like it was mostly the grays, but then no, you get these offshoot ones. Like, who was that one guy? Now, I'll tell it real quick, and I guarantee you're going to recall it. It's a guy fishing, two guys fishing. I think it was in Michigan, to tell you the truth. It was a big lake, and they're fishing. This thing comes down, the spaceship hovering over the water. They're both stunned. One of them is kind of doesn't talk a lot, kind of, it's kind of like a Jethro, if you know what I mean. He's got a mice and men kind of. All right. Are you tracking me? So he's like that. And then there's the little talkative guys, kind of like Barney Fife, and a little less animated, but kind of there. And
I remember
this
when that one happened.
Exactly. I can't remember the names, but
the Pascagoula abduction.
Yes. And the thing that comes out of that ship,
Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker, I believe.
Thank you.
And
but I described it fairly
well. A couple of good old boys. And I remember hearing that like on the local news in Knoxville, that they claimed they were abducted, and the thing looked like a big eye.
Where was it?
Scanned of Pascagoula, Mississippi was where it happened.
Mississippi. Okay. So what was the name? I was close. I said Michigan.
You're close.
That's the best you can hope from a Cisco. So yeah, and the thing that came out of there was out of this world. And we've heard him talk on the show, because I had the interview with the little fella, and he it's still stunned. The other guy's so stunned he didn't want to talk about it for, I think he came out like 40 years later, like he was getting up there, and he came out and told it, and said everything the little fella had said it was true. He was just shy for about 45, 50 years, but there you go. And that was incredible, but something totally different from the two paper plates, Steve, flying through the air. And then you've got all your predator stuff and your humanoid things, and your
whatever it is getting bolder, I think.
There's a lot of different things, but I bet you every time you say alien, people automatically think the grays, and whatever modified look that they might have to those grays, but I started thinking a couple decades ago that they were more like a worker class. They seem to be very methodical and they're here for a job, and they're just, like we get when we're doing that, like worker bees. Yeah. All right. So I'm not sure what happened to these fine young man here in the UK, but I know what happened to him in the 90s, and it's sighting. So it's going to be a good story. So here we go. Hot water time. It's good tea. think it's the right one.
Welcome to Sightings. I'm Tim White. On a past
Good bouncy
edition of
fella.
Sightings, we introduced you to Nick Pope, the British Defense Ministry's former point man for UFO investigations. When I
That's the right
first
one.
interviewed Pope last year, he told me that he was a non-believer until one extraordinary UFO report changed his mind completely. It's a case little known outside of England, but one that has the power to turn skeptics into true believers. Nick Pope has been transferred away from the UFO desk at the Ministry of Defense, but his book, Open Skies, Closed Minds, has him once again at the center of Britain's
It's a good
UFO
title.
debate. It's an unlikely position for a man who started out as a dyed-in-the-wool skeptic.
When I started the UFO job at the Ministry of Defense, I really didn't know what I was letting myself in for. I came in as a skeptic and with very little knowledge of what it was all about.
I kind of like this fellow.
Then one startling
Be right back.
report, and Nick Pope was never the same again.
I'd been doing the UFO job for a year or so when a case came along which really changed my perception on the whole UFO mystery. It occurred on the 30th and the 31st of March 1993, and it was without doubt one of the most major waves of sightings that Britain had ever seen.
At 1:05 a.m., March 31st, 1993, the report began, radar did not detect a massive UFO in British airspace. There were military and police eyewitnesses and impeccable documentation.
There were dozens of witnesses all over the country. Many of them, because this was late at night, were police officers on night patrol and military personnel on guard duty.
UFO investigator Doug Cooper was awakened at 2:20 that morning by a shaken Cornwall police sergeant who described what he and others had just seen.
The object was black, and it appeared to be shaped either something like a wedge shape or a delta wing shape, or indeed like a catamaran, a twin-hulled craft. There were lights on this craft, which they appeared to be at either end of it, which they described as about 500 feet apart.
At the Ministry of Defense, Nick Pope was being inundated with questions about the UFO's origins.
I launched a full inquiry into this. I made a series of very detailed checks to try and find a prosaic explanation for this. I checked aircraft movements, satellite tracks, airships, weather balloons, but after an extremely detailed inquiry that took me several weeks, I drew a complete blank. This was a genuine unknown.
Pope and Cooper persevered, in large part because of the sheer number of reliable eyewitnesses. Pope pored over the reports of Devon Patrol officers Barry Mitchell and Gus Cotty, who observed the UFO near the Bristol Channel.
Gus? Oh my word. Gus and I both sort of looked at each other, and Gus stopped the car and we got out.
I've never seen anything like that before.
Certainly the three lights that we saw, I certainly formed the opinion that they were fixed to the same object, albeit I couldn't see any object, travelling at the same speed, and had it been a conventional sized aircraft, it would have been a deafening noise. It was probably in our view for about 30 seconds.
It was really strange, yeah. Those are the three lights in the position, and that's our vehicle. You just don't know what to say, do you? It's the first time you come across something like that.
Their notes and drawings only came out after they discovered they were not alone.
It's very difficult to come out of the closet, so to speak, and talk about these things openly. So Barry and I decided not to say anything initially, but then another officer in Cornwall came up over the radio and said that he had seen these lights. Once it had broken the ice, we just then said, well, yeah, we've seen them as well. And then other officers came across the radio as well to say that they'd seen the lights as well.
In fact, police all over southern England were calling dispatch with UFO sightings of their own.
The other officers who saw these lights, albeit some of those officers were in excess of 60 or 70 miles away from where we were, the timing of their sighting was exactly the same as the timing of our sighting, which, putting the whole thing together, makes it even further a bigger mystery.
Police officers are reliable. They're not given to flights of fancy, as far as we're concerned. They're reporting something which they're seeing, which they don't understand. This is basically what we're talking about. It's an object which they can't identify with. And I suppose to some extent, rather alarmed them.
At MOD, Pope read secret Air Force documents and discovered that the RAF was just as baffled as he.
He realized that something had happened, and he seems to have gone out of his way to be as helpful as he possibly could by sending me a letter with the map on it, of course. We've never had this before from anybody in that position.
Not only did Pope send a map showing when and how the UFO had traveled, he also included where. A complete list of sightings locations, including several military installations, something only the Defense Ministry knew. Pope did it because he felt the UFO posed a serious threat. Something had flown into England, and military radar didn't catch it.
I ordered the radar tapes to be impounded and sent to me in my office. I then
Did not
sat
show
down,
up on
viewed
radar.
them, and then brought in an air defense expert to have another look. We were clear that there was nothing on the tape. This was very worrying. We'd got reports from military personnel of a sizable craft operating very low over 2 of our military bases, and there was nothing on radar. So we never had any warning, and we never even got our air defense aircraft into the air.
The MOD are faced with a situation where they have an object flying across our counties, and they have no way of detecting it. Whether they're alien craft or otherwise is another matter. But the fact is that an unknown craft crossed right across these counties, and the RAF do not appear to have picked it up on their radar.
If a structured craft of unknown origin has evaded detection by the Royal Air Force, the implications are global. If the world's air defense systems cannot respond, what will?
That's got to be extremely worrying, and that's got to mean that this whole UFO sighting is a matter of extreme defense significance. The party line, the Ministry of Defense standard view, is that UFOs are of no defense significance. Now, after this incident, I didn't have much time for that standard line. I felt it simply didn't stand up to the facts. And it was from this point that my views on the whole UFO phenomenon began to change. And I began to realize that it wasn't just lights in the sky. It couldn't be explained. And there may well be some extraterrestrial explanation to a hard core of these UFO sightings.
We asked the Ministry of Defense for comment on this report. The MOD's official response states that while they remain open-minded about the possible existence of flying saucers, they, quote, remain unaware of any evidence which proves that these phenomena exist, unquote.
Next, why moonwalker Edgar Mitchell turned...
No evidence, Steve. I haven't seen a thing. Nobody's seen anything. Nobody's documented anything. Nobody's taken any pictures. Nobody's written any statements, told anybody, wrote stories or books, analyzed it. Not a one. That's their official statement. You know, I'll tell you what. Officials are starting to not sound so official anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but there you go. Steve, I think we ran circles around Stonehenge and
Yeah, I think
a couple
so.
of cropsicles too. What do you think? Do you think we covered it?
Yeah, we did a good broad coverage of it and a couple of deep dives there too. So,
No eyewitnesses. No,
good job. Yeah.
Not a thing. So there we are. And I'll tell you what, 2 hours in with a buffet of information and evidence, I still, I don't know. Something's up. I believe all this stuff exists. Now tell me how it's all connected, because again, it seems to be following the same paranormal pattern of skeptics and people that laugh and point, and local TV shows that they'll tell this story, but they're going to give each other the elbow and make the laugh and the titter. Oh, you're brave for going there and find, ooh, aliens, ooh. Yeah, let me tell you something. It's nobody said it better than Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park, the original. First comes the oohing and the eyeing, and then comes the running and the screaming. And if you could say that about a genre,
Very, very well put. Yeah.
you better damn well know what you're messing with, because I've seen people that came at me and they were so, and I'm telling you, you need to stop. You just, okay, I can feel it. I know what's going on. I'm hearing your words, but I'm also getting what your energy is bringing. And then it doesn't matter how long you spend with those people. It could be a 2-hour phone call or 2 weeks in or whatever. And I just keep saying, remember the first thing I told you when you told me this story? Same thing. Because that's where you have to start. And until you're ready to just zero in, like I said, lean into those torpedoes, folks, and keep watching these shows. Again, I showed that last little guy about the UFOs, because here's the thing. Did you notice the craft? Did you notice it was police officers? Did you know it was the Royal Air Force, and their stance on it? Same thing. This is global. Everybody's trying to keep a lid on this stuff. Why? Why don't they want you to know? When you can look back, and people in this chat know right now, this is ancient. Whatever's going on, and I don't think it fits one file cabinet, just like ghosts and paranormal and cryptids and everything else. Again, same pattern, because they're not one group that's here to help us not destroy ourselves. And if it has something to do with if it affects their planet, sure, I believe that there would be ones here that were stopping us from doing something that would affect their planet. That makes sense to me. Other than that, it's like Professor Leak. Do you bother telling the cockroach why what you're doing that day, what your plans are? So if you think about it like that, and you think about, it's bigger than us, it's bigger than me. And Bartles and James might have made 1 or 2, but I saw them huffing and puffing. God bless them. They made sure they got that done for that film crew, but they're not responsible for 380 crop circles around Stonehenge. And why Stonehenge? So there are questions.
Never would have had time to do anything else if they did all those.
Mm-hmm. And there's groups out there watching it, folks, of all kinds that got their eye on it for us. But again, how is this connected with everything else, and what's going on, and why are they trying so hard to keep it, a secret? And they had this stuff, again, this is the 90s, over 30 years ago, all of that information. And what do we have now 30 years later that trumps that? Do you know what I mean? That blows all that out of the water, and where's our answer? And now insert Bigfoot and ask yourself that question. Insert ghosts and paranormal. Do you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
We're like puppies chasing tails. Sometimes we got to stop and go, wait a minute. Look, Dave, a cow, and just stop and regroup. And I think we did that tonight. I feel good about it, Steve. I love you, my friend. What do you got going on this week?
Just more of the usual videos coming out on different channels. Tomorrow night, Lee G, First Floor Audio, Night Rider.
Yes.
Should be over there with that. Wednesdays From Beyond.
Wonderful.
And we've talked some crop circle stuff over there. So a lot of good stuff on the way. Just keep listening. Keep looking to the stars.
Yep, absolutely. What's that one quote that's on that video that I do? It says, it's a dancing one, and it says, "Shoot for the moon, you might miss and hit a star."
Yeah,
I like that. I like that a lot. And keep dancing. Get your shoes off, get out there, plant something. I saw a guy did a video the other day. I'll shut up. He's showing his yard, and he's talking about how he's coping, and he's a light worker. He just doesn't call it that. He doesn't really know it, but he gets it. He's just calling it something different, and that's fine. It's a light worker. We need help. We need every single one of them, every single flame burning. And so he's out there, and he's talking about him and his wife, and they just decided they were going to fix up their yard and make it a little sanctuary because, hey, good idea. And they were cutting a path through this, through the little trees there, and hanging out on a Sunday and doing a nice little job of it. But they came across this gardenia that she had planted out there like 2 years before somebody gave it to her as a potted plant or whatever. And it was right smack dab in the middle of the walkway. and they just couldn't bring it upon themselves to take a chance at killing that little beautiful little gardenia. Hadn't even bloomed yet. It was going to be this year. It was going to bloom. And moved it, it would have stopped, messed up its cycle and all this other stuff. And, you know, so anyway, taking a risk and moving it and messing, you know, and to make their walkway more beautiful. So they went around it. And it's the only place that they didn't have a straight walk, and they were willing to do that. And I just thought it was so cool. Sometimes you got to change your plans for a little extra beauty and a little extra stop, and understand that not everything, not all beauty should be killed or changed to make it easier on us. You know, we got to start elevating that stuff and artistry and things like that. So lift each other up. You know, like I said, AI scared the hell out of me because, like I said, I gave it 6 sentences and they weren't real long. They weren't very descriptive. And it did that. So what's coming, you know, a week from now, because everything's changing fast. Hang on to the good stuff, right, Steve? I love you. My love to Nick. And, you know, this is going to sound a little weird, but, you know, guys, give it a shot. And I didn't mean to play that. But again, I looked at it and I just said a couple of things, and this is what I got. And if that'll help you out with your creativity, give it a shot. It was free, and it might keep you busy and get your mind off of things if you need a little distraction. And this one was going to be mine tonight because I know it sounds weird to want to go to Africa, but let's go to Africa. Go with me. Good night, everybody. Good night, Steve. I love you.
Good night, everybody. Love you too, Cisco. Thanks, everybody.
Good night. I love this. I haven't seen it in so long. I hope it cheers you up, makes you smile. Love it. There you go. Get back to nature, everybody. Feel that. Feel that. Love you. Be good humans.